Hello, so today is going to be the third attempt at me doing this video. The first one, I just wasn't happy with what I put out and what I recorded, and the second one, I had something going on in the background that I didn't know was going on because the laptop was on mute, and when I played it back, then I heard something else, so that was no good. So this is another. As you can see from looking at the title, is another one of my influences. And firstly, I'm going to talk about the Berlin Dada group as a whole, but I'm going to primarily focus on the two people that I'm going to do. Well, I'm going to mention a lot two people that I'm going to do individual videos of, the which are two members of the group, which are John Heartfield and Hannah Hoch. The reason why Berlin Dada was quite an influence for me was because of just the reason of the kind of artwork we do, the kind of what we call collage, what they called montage, is it began with this group. I mean, people were doing collage type stuff before then. I mean, some of their cubists were putting things like stamps, uh, sticking those onto their paintings to add a bit of real world attachment to it. And the and before then, people were cutting stuff out, and it was used as a method for filmmaking before proper optical compositing existed. And from what I gather, Victorian women were doing well-to-do Victorian women were like cutting out things and sticking them together for use for photo books and so forth, so and to entertain themselves. But it didn't really come out about as as something that had an actual name for itself, which at that time it was called montage. They called it for that. They called them these montages until this Berlin group, and the term came about. I can't remember whether it was George Gross or John Heartfield that came up with that, but it was like from I believe maybe a French word is just to make. So it's better than people making from other people, from printings of other people's work, and that's where the term montage came from. And to be more specific, of what they were doing at the time, it was more like photo montage. And how I found out about this group, um, specific, but I mean everybody knows the term Dada. Most people do, and they knew they were an anti-art group. But that for the main public, that's pretty much the extent of their knowledge, and the fact that punk is considered a spiritual successor to Dada. Um, but how I found out about this group in particular was, and more about the Dada movement a little, was from Dawn Aids' book on photo montage, and I do have a video where I have where I've talked about that as an influence, because it was a massive influence on me, because that book opened my eyes to a previous history of collage, or as she called it, it's also called photo montage, in that I never knew about. So my main influence is from like punk record covers and from what just stuff that I saw. Um, so the this group came about in Berlin after the group in Switzerland, and there were other groups, another German group in Cologne, and then there was one in Paris, and there was one in New York, and this one is where you had, as previously mentioned, John Heartfield and Hannah Hoch, and they were the big proponents of montage. I'm going to just continue to call it montage for this. And there's also Raoul Houseman, who Hannah Hoch was in a relationship with, but you can see she was the one that had the greater artistic eye, I thought. And we also had George Gross, who did some work with John Hartfield. I apologise if I'm getting his name wrong. That's going to happen a lot with some things like this, because there's Richard Huelsenbeck, who I've probably got his name wrong as well, and Johannes Bader. Um, they were all involved, but the main ones were Heartfield, Hoch, Houseman, and Gross. So you have and you have here. This is on the Wikipedia page. So and it began really in about 1920. So or really picked up steam in 1920. So it says here Raoul Hartmann, who helped establish Dada in Berlin, published Manifesto Sino of Painting in 1918, and he attacked Expressionism. So the groups in Germany were not as strongly as anti-art as other groups, as it says. The art activity were more political and social, and you see that with if here. This is a Dada fair, and so you can instantly see the political element to it with this. I'm not sure if it's an army or a policeman, but it's got a pig's head. So that was brought about in part, at least, or maybe not, maybe totally, by John Heartfield. So that was the beginning of his. He was always very political minded. He may have even, I can't remember if he was a member of the Communist Party by that point. And so you have, but with Raoul Haussmann, this is from his Wikipedia page, and he calls this one a self-portrait, a photo montage from 23 to 24. And the title came from some of the lettering he stuck on there, so he's got that in there. You can see how they, and you get some people who do these kind of montages now. However, you get you see how they just like completely disassembled all artistic norms and made new art from it, and this is how montage came about. But it wasn't wasn't so much in the everything done as nonsense like as the Zurich group, where they, like I said, they said they weren't quite as anti art as previous groups, and also that some of them, like for instance, as you see here from Haussmann and certainly John Heartfield, they were very well classically trained painters, and John Heartfield was a very skilled painter, and he was very canny with that graphic design. So his brother had a publishing group, and he would do the covers for these books. And so yeah, begin with Richard Huelsenbeck. Again, apologise for messing up his name. He arrived back in Berlin, and so yeah, so and over the course of weeks, Haussmann, Huelsenbeck, George Gross, John Heartfield, Young, Hoch, Hannah Hoch, whilst marrying and Bada, started the Club Dada. So it's from 1918. But the stuff that we're really interested in is the photo. He was saying about photo montage, and the call for materials in painting bore fruit later the same year in Haussmann holiday in the Baltic Sea, and they stayed there. Generic portrait of soldiers, which the patron glued photographic heads, portrait heads on of his son 5 times. So, and that's how they came about. It worked how it came out. So I think it seems to me that John Heartfield and George Gross and these two, they probably came up with this kind of thing independently, but through different methods. And he also did Ray Houseman experimented with sound poems. But as you can see here, it's a lot of cut up and rearranging, and so that was that's how experimental it was. Then nobody had a fair footing of what this new piece of artwork, this new medium of artwork is going to be. This is why some of it looks so rough and experimental, and some of the stuff that we think of as if someone's come up with that now, it may not be as well received or as was thought of as it won't bat as much of an eyelid now, because we're so used to what some people consider modern art in air quotes, that there's a lot of things have already been seen and done. So now all we can do is do the best we can with the medium we've chosen. So there's not really much you can do that will change things. It's just we now make images that we feel make something or please us. And this here is a mechanical head, which has got a dummy's a wig, hairdresser's wig maker's head or something, and attach stuff to it. But the two bigger people I'm going to talk about, you have here John Heartfield, and this is from a page that his grandson has made up, and he shares the same name as him, by the way, and very much promotes his artwork and so forth. So this is some of his Dada stuff. So that's him with George Gross. As you can see, Hartfield was not a big man. That's a little attribute that came to save his life later on, but I'll talk about that in his individual video. And you see a lot of stuff being cut up, and here it's a matter of its statements, and the way these cut up is a certain savagery to it, I think. And his work from the beginning was always about saying something. And they had a publication called Dada, and I think this might be one of Houseman's, or it's involved with him. Sometimes these people will they work together. And it says this one is important because it carries first known political photo montage. So I said 1920s. This is 1919. It really, like I said, it really picked up after 1920. And so Hartfield placed well-known Weimar Republic politicians and military figures together on a fan. He's currently asked if you to decide who is the prettiest. So this is when he was starting to really get his overtly political hat on, which is the stuff he's really mostly known for. And he's talking about how he came about it. How I got the idea of making photo montages. I'd say I started making photo montages during the First World War. There were a lot of things that got me into working with photos. The main thing is that I saw both what was being said and not being said with photos in the newspapers. The most important thing for me intrinsically is to become involved in the opposition and work with a medium I didn't consider to be an artistic medium, photography. Now you get that sometimes where you get some people just don't really value photographers because I think it's just like click. So this obviously there's a lot more to it than that. Um, I have my intentions with photographers sometimes because some people will say to me, well, I don't get it that much actually, the whole thing, and it's not really art. Anyone could do that. Well, anyone could argue anyone can take a picture. They can just sometimes you have to be lucky to get the right shot. I mean, there's a bit more to it than that. Obviously, you've got to know a lot about lighting and composition and so forth. And there's a lot of practicing around and a lot of dud photos before you get your good one. But anyway, so I found out you can really fool people's photos, really fool them. You can lie and tell the truth by putting the wrong title or wrong captions under them, and that's roundly what was being done. This happens a lot now. Sometimes you will get with propaganda, you will get pictures that were taken taken at different times, or videos nowadays because of videos taken different times and used for something else, like when during 9/11 some unscrupulous media outlets in America were showing video footage of people in Palestine celebrating, and that video footage was from a completely different incident, news story. Anyway, photos of the war being used to support policy to hold out when the war had long since been settled on the Marne and the German army had already been beaten. I think Heartfield might have been involved in the First World War as well. Yeah, here we go. I was a soldier from very early on. Then we pasted and pasted. I basically quickly cut out a photo and then put one under another. Of course, that produced another counterpoint, a contradiction that expressed something different. That was the idea, and it wasn't all that clear to me where it would lead to, or that it would lead me to photo montage. So that is something that's always been a big point of a lot of collage I see, is the fact of how it, the contradictions involved in the two, the juxtaposition. And that's a big thing with me, of putting things that really do not go together, and see how sometimes the tension between the two things is what makes the piece work, and that's something where he's going on. I'm going to go more into his artwork in his personal one, but that's going to be mostly about his his political stuff, specifically from a book called covers from a magazine called AIZ, and I have a book of reproductions of that um, at home. So the next person to talk about really is Hannah Hoch. She was the other big one for photo montage, and it was she didn't didn't get the recognition that she really deserved. She was she was basically the girl in a boys' club, and she didn't get certainly didn't get the respect she deserved, even from somewhere that was a group that was supposed to be about um, equality and female empowerment. But it was still, there was, even though she was the one that actually had a day job, she worked at a magazine, and she helped basically support financially the other boys. So this is the piece that she's most known for, is cut with a kitchen knife. Some people call it cut with a cake knife. And see if I can zoom in a bit more. Not really much more, but this is like I say, it's Dada chaos, but you have the political elements, the anti-Dada, which is the anti-Dada. So you've got here um, the Kaiser Wilhelm with something in place of his moustache. I wish I could zoom in more to this. And you've got Einstein there with the figure eight in place of his eye. I doubt they were thinking that at that time as an infinity symbol. And I don't know if that's her in there, but and degross Dada. There was that was very common of the time of the Dada colleges at the time to have the term Dada thrown in there a lot. Oh, and here you got a baby with his head has been replaced with like a backward old man's head. And you've got Karl Marx there. So, as with this group, you see you see these very early collages or montages. They're very, it's chaotic is really the word I can use. There's a lot of stream of consciousness, and that was possibly a bit of an influence on what you would have with you'd see that later with Monty Python, with not just the Terry Gilliam's animations, but also just how the whole thing was set together, and that stream of consciousness idea method of doing things that spilled over into Dada's real direct successor, which was surrealism. But that was more the Paris group. I believe, and some other people then joined in with that. But the whole thing of ideas of automatic writing came from this whole stream of consciousness. Now, the interesting thing about Hannah Hoch was she was the only one from that particular group who actually was alive when punk rock came about. And so that would be interesting. I wonder if she actually had knew about it, or if she did, if she had any feelings about that, because obviously people describe punk as being the spiritual successor to Dada, with it being anti Dada being considered anti-art, punk being anti-music, and punk had, people think of the music element of it, but you don't. They tend to forget that he was a well, most people tend to forget there was also a literary movement, and with it expressing a poetic movement, and a the visual art movement. The same way that Dada also had its musical element with its nonsense poems and nonsense songs, in the very early days at the Cabaret Voltaire, and the way people looked. Um, so yeah, so and George Gross was next person. George Gross. I haven't got a page up about him really, but he did a lot of political cartoons. He was quite well known for that. Cologne talking about. Um, so and Hans Richter talked about them as well. But there's a page about George Gross. So yeah, he was actually, he was very well known for his political poems. Less as much for the montage, but he worked he worked quite well closely with John Heartfield to develop them. And those the ones that people have talked about, the ones that are really where it's an influence for montage art, and everything basically we do grew from there. So this is why I consider it such an influence, and hope this has taught you a bit about it. Of course, research this. A great place thing to buy is Dornate's book and photo montage, as I've said previously, and I've since then bought the third edition of that book, and so the plates in inside are colour, and there's a little bit of expanded text, but still nothing about punk, which is a shame. But and I see here, Hannah Hoch wasn't the only woman involved in Dada, but she was the only one in Berlin, and it was still primarily a boys' club. But um, she was one of Berlin Dada's hidden weapons, you might say, or secret weapons. Because people Raoul Houseman liked to pretend he was the big, not to discourage anything he did, because what he did was fantastic, but she was really, and as history remembers it a bit more this way now, as she was the real brains in that couple, and she had the massive talent, and her story will be going obviously gone into more in the her own video, and she certainly deserves it. So and so does John Heartfield. So because they both of their work have big influences on me as well. So let me know what you think. Whether you like this, what you think about Berlin Dada. Tell me what you found out about it, and I will. And of course, my link, my description has my link tree, which are merch links and my socials, and also about my Patreon, and the and down at the bottom there should be a thanks button, which you can get a bit of donate a little if you want to. But if not, if you want to help me for free, like, share, and subscribe, please. That all helps really immensely. So let me know what you think, and I shall speak to you soon. Thank you.